Hello and welcome to Yerushalmi Berachos Tzadi Beis and Aleph. There's something very surprising that you would find in contrast to the very, very famous Bavli, and it's not so to the Mishnah at all because the Yerushalmi actually explains how to read the Mishnah. But let's go over it first. So the Mishnah says that if somebody's wife is pregnant, and he davens about the gender, so Yeratzon Shetelet Ishti Zachar Harez Tefillah Shav. Okay, so the question is, at what point is it Tefillah Shav? Meaning, before someone gets pregnant, of course, we get daven for the gender. So, what exactly does that mean? So, the Bavli says that it's dependent on Yetziras of Vlad, which is the first 40 days, but the gender isn't yet determined yet. And that's basically how everybody kind of categorizes it. The Yerushalmi seems to be so that. The Beis Yanai Omer, he says, that B'Yosheves al Mishmor he masi. So that's only talking about that you can't daven for the gender when the woman is literally on the birthing stool. I just want to make a very quick comment about the birthing stool, because in early times, people actually would sit. There was for example, we find in Shemos, where Isam Allah of Noyim, when you see them on these stones, and they're actually hieroglyphics of women giving birth. They would sit on two stones, or even on one, and like this, their feet were crouching, and their feet were actually elevated, so that they would actually have more pushing power. And this has become a fad that's more popular now, but actually in ancient times, when people died during child labor, there was this concept of birthing stool. So there you have it. That's literally what it is. It would help with the crouching process, which makes a lot of sense. Anyway, and then it says, Pasuk hine kechomer b'yad hayotzer. Okay, and then the Gemara goes into this whole conversation about about changing of the Vlad. And again, seemingly this is Soser the Bavli, which seems to have a very different opinion. So Rabbi B'Shem Tebeis Rav Yanai says, Ikri Burish al Dina Zacharaya, that originally Dina, the son of Yaakov and Leah, was actually a male. Me'achar shenisbal la Rachel, again, different gersos here. The Bavli also agrees that something happened, but there it says Leah. After Rachel daven, Nasis Nekeva, the fetus turned into a female. Is that what it's saying? Okay. Adahi, as it says, V'achar yolda bas v'tikar shma Dina. Now, there's a whole problem with the psukim as to whether this is referring to Dina and Yosef being switched, or Binyamin. One of the, and we'll get to that later in the Yerushalmi itself. Right. So let's zoom out for a second. So in all the Chazals, they talk about this idea that Yaakov was going to have 12 sons, and if Rachel already had if Leah already had 6, and then the Shvachos already had Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, 2 each. So then you literally are only left with 2, and Kiyadua, then Rachel would have less than the Shvachos. If Leah would have another child, then that means 11 Shvatim were already born. She had another male. So then Rachel would only be able to have one child. So, like Rashi brings us down in the Chazal, it's really more in the Bavli. So, and again, then Rachel Dav and Nasis Nekeva turned into a female. So the question is, at what point? And then it says that Rachel was a Neviah, from the early Nevios actually. And I just want to read one more thing. So then it says that Hadod Chsiv, as it says, Yosef Hashem li ben acher, banim acherim lo amr. She doesn't say other sons, ela od acher, one other one. Okay, so let's go through some of these points here. Okay, so the first point is that that the Bavli says that this tefillah took place not with Rachel but with Leah, who made this cheshbon. That's why she's called Dina, like Rashi brings down, that she was done din la'atzma. She understood that there was going to be a problem here. Now, the Targum Yonasan, he actually brings down that the fetus was not transformed into a male, but Dina was originally conceived by Rachel, and Yosef, who was in Leah's stomach, was miraculously switched. Now, it's very interesting to find this kind of transparency and changing between Yosef and Dina and their actual bond, that they actually got together and had a child together. It says you're supposed to marry your niece because she's most similar to you in the Bavli. So it's interesting that there's literally a similarity and a very deep connection between Dina and Yosef. And Agav, it's brought down in this farm that after Yaakov married Leah by accident, so the Tanchuma says that Yaakov asked Leah, "What'd you do? Why'd you fool me? Like, I understand Rachel didn't want to embarrass you, but I have time on you. Why did you fool me?" And she said back to him, "Is there a book that doesn't have a reader? I read your book. You stole the brachos from your father, and you fooled him." So the Mefarshei Tanchuma actually say that she wasn't being spiteful, and she wasn't saying, you got to taste your own medicine. No, she was saying that you actually changed the course of history, because when you stole the brachos from Esav, so I was supposed to marry Esav. But then, actually, Esav lost his tikkun, and now I actually was supposed to marry you because you actually got me, so to speak. That's why Esav comes back at the end of the Gemara in Bavli and Sota and wants to be buried next to Leah because he was saying that's my rightful wife. But then there was a taina against Leah because of this, and therefore her daughter, Batete Dina Bas Leah, therefore her daughter was taken by the Kochos Hara, which were Esav's power, so to speak, and had to be brought back. So there's a lot more going on there, obviously, but the point is, and then a child came out of that bond, which was Asnas, according to many Midrashim, who ended up marrying Yosef, who was adopted by Potiphar. Anyway, so, but according to this pshat, the Targum Yonasan, that doesn't seem to be what's being said over here. Okay, so basically, the Gemara in Berachos in Bavli, Daf Samach and Aleph, it says clearly that the gender cannot be changed. And as far as how do we deal with Dina's transformation, so that's a miracle. Or more than that, they actually bring down, some of the Mepharshim actually try to reconcile it, that the Gemara here is saying that she's a Neviah, meaning that that's not what happened. She was a Neviah, and she knew that either of this change would take place, but it's not a proof that the change should always take place and could always change. So then it's being soser, this thing about that you can't daven, al mishvar. So there's a lot of things to be said over here, but again, the Bavli's understanding is probably the most accepted, which is that until 40 days, there's no source of law that's determined. So that is there, and that's basically how most people will quote it. And lastly, I want to bring down from that Gadol Eliyahu. He says that he explained a lot of this Nevuah part, how to reconcile the two, but he also says that it mentions the birth of Dinah before the birth of Yosef, in order to kind of cover up that the switch actually took place, so it is not to embarrass Rachel, which is part of the way of shielding her from being embarrassed, which is really, really fascinating, because even though Chazal are telling us this, it's important for us to know, but there's even a sensitivity, even in the way that it tells over the story, not to embarrass Rachel, which is a big lesson in life that to take to heart, about not embarrassing people and being careful. Right, so there's Imre Yosher, and there's also Maram Chaviv, who explain specifically, like I just mentioned, that Rehuda ben Pazi is actually debating any raya from Rachel's tefillah and this swap, and that he was actually just saying that this was the outcome of a nevuah that took place. But again, there seemed to have been some switch, and whether you could bring a raya from it or not is very, very fascinating. I'm learning through Rish tomorrow, but some very, very fascinating. That was just a simple shot of the Yerushalmi. Does clearly say that that change could take place in the gender literally until birth. And again, Yoshevas al Mishbar, like the Gadol Eliyahu explains, and many others, that's considered the baby is literally coming out. So it's too late at that point to make that change. Have a great day.